Okay. There it is. All right, so securing a home network. So according to the book, one of the things you do is change factory default or default factory passwords. Now you guys remember when I told you about Twitter going down last week, right? How that happened? People didn't change the default passwords on their Internet of Things. So the Wi-Fi controlled thermostats, light bulbs, and things like that. All these things that are connected to the internet that you control by your phone, they have to have an IP address. And so those are the types of things that hackers took advantage of to take Twitter down by crashing the DNS server about a year ago. So what you do, what are some of the default passwords you can change on your home network? Give me one of them.
What do you mean?
Wi-Fi password? That's not a default one. You select that when you create your Wi-Fi. Well, technically there's a default one. So, but okay, so that's a good one. So you're actually right, Josh. Thomas?
The router password.
Router. So Wi-Fi, router. Is there any more?
Thermostat.
In a way, yes. I actually. You could, but what you'd want to do is do your default home router network, your router and your network. So you want to change your default password from your Wi-Fi because those can be mined and found through online. So instead of having, 4AB0FG2X, right? Just do something that's like,
this is the password.
Correct horse battery
84
staple. Right, that's a lot easier to remember than this. It's a lot longer, so it's harder to guess, and you don't have to worry about which one's capitalized and which one's lowercase. You could lowercase all of those and it wouldn't matter. All right, at one word, so you know how when they do passwords, it's 1 through 8 to 16 characters long, upper lowercase, symbol, and all that stuff. Right? That makes it secure, but it also makes it hard to remember. Therefore, people tend to write down their passwords, and when we get into computer security, that's called social engineering, where they figure out your password because you wrote it down and they take it out of the trash. So instead of doing something crazy, where it's like, yo, sem, it, t, money, trying to remember that. Right, instead of trying to remember that, you could just do Yosemite is a really cool place. A lot easier to remember. You may want to, not a really cool place, but is where I proposed or whatever.
I got it. Sebastian is bad.
No.
He's bullying me.
So I know. So stop. You also, one thing you'd want to change. What is it? What else does it say here?
SSID.
I know. All right. Anyone know what the SSID is? It's the what? Oh, Thomas.
It's like Wastu would be an SSID,
Yes.
What you select.
Yeah, it is the Wi-Fi name.
Yeah.
To put it simply, and it stands for exactly. Oh, it doesn't say. Oh, there it is. Service set identifier. Thought it was something like that. Service set identifier is a fancy name for the Wi-Fi name. So you want to change your You also want to change your router or your Wi-Fi name, because if it's home 92-D, almost no one names their network like this. This is totally a default. So what you'd want to do, mine at my house is Abraham Linksys.
Oh my god.
That's pretty bad.
That's pretty funny. That's pretty funny.
That's pretty bad.
Right? And then I don't even remember the password. Oh no, I do. Okay. But if you are trying to hack into someone's network and you're driving along, right, and you're sitting in your car and you're looking at Wi-Fi networks and you see Abraham Linksys versus Home 92-D, which one do you think is going to be easier to get into?
The home one.
The home one, because they didn't even change the default name. Okay, they probably didn't change the default password. And you can actually go online, and if I know you have Xfinity, I can get into your router. Because to log into anyone's router, Xfinity, and this is why you need to change your router password.
That's password.
The default login is admin, which you can keep, that's fine. The password is almost always password.
That's it.
So if I'm on your network, because you didn't change this, and I was able to get the password through online tools, I can then go admin, type it in, password. I'm literally in control of your network. I can kick Sebastian off his network. I can implement rules. I can take over. I could put a virus on the network and just blow it up. Or you could do something more nefarious and put like a packet sniffer in there, or packet analyzer that analyzes all the packets and sends it back to you using their network. And they wouldn't even know because they didn't even change this. So if your guys' home network is something like this, you may want to bring it up to the parents and say, yo, this is what I just learned in networking. We may want to change that to literally anything besides, well, not literally anything, but look up something clever online, you know, Bill Y the Science Fi or something like that. Sebastian. All right. So change SSID. You guys good? Change basically all the default stuff to something else. Because there's 90% of, well, I won't say 90% of people, but a decent amount of people who don't change their Wi-Fi passwords. And once they'll do the Wi-Fi name and the Wi-Fi password, but they don't change the router name or they don't change the router IP address. I don't change my router.
Like, how do you see a router name? Is that when you will actually log into it?
So,
You put a gateway in, don't you?
yeah, so for Xfinity, so if you have Xfinity, do you have Xfinity?
Yeah.
If you type in when you're on your home Wi-Fi, you go 10.0.0.1.
Yeah. I know
That takes you to the router login page. Yeah. So what you'd want to do is you can change this. Right? I didn't change mine because I have a really good password. Although if they can get to my page and they're really good at hacking, they may be able to break it. So I may want to change this to like 4 or 47 or whatever. But I haven't yet.
Does that change anything or no?
No, just change what you have to type in to log into it. So mine also, I can go to, on my network, I have so I can go to orbylogin.net or something like that. And that, instead of remembering that, so it takes me right to it. Which is also, I think, another reason why I didn't bother changing that, because I can just type in orbylogin. Anyway, so you want to make sure you know that this is how you get in to change your Wi-Fi password. This is how you get in to change if you want MAC filters, and MAC filtering is something we have to talk about today. And I have half hour. So this is, WoW is, I think, 192.168.0.1. You guys recognize these? What are they?
Binary code.
No.
The IP.
They're private IP addresses.
AT&T look the same.
Private IP addresses. Yeah, and I don't know what AT&T is. I just know these two because that's what I had and this is what I have.
It's like 192.168.54 at the end or something.
Yeah, and you can Google Comcast default router default IP, and it'll tell you that. Or WoW default IP, and if you get it, and you're on the network, you type it in, you can get right into the login page. So the next thing is turn encryption on. That is basically put a Wi-Fi password on your network. Don't let it be free. And we're gonna go over, there are 3 different types of passwords it mentions. You have wired equivalent privacy, Wi-Fi protected access, which is WPA, and WPA2, which of the 3 do you think is the most secure? WPA2, yeah. That one actually, when we get into more forms of encryption, you'll learn why that's more effective, but effectively it uses such an advanced algorithm to encrypt stuff that when properly implemented, it's never been hacked. Key word there is properly implemented. If you leave your password laying around and someone grabs it, well, you didn't properly implement it. And that might just be something they say to, like, you know, plausible deniability. Well, it was hacked. Well, you guys obviously didn't implement it correctly. Someone left a password somewhere. It got cracked again. Shh. Don't let them know. All right. Next thing. Turn off the SSID broadcast. This one is if you're kind of obsessed with security, you don't even let people know you have a Wi-Fi at your house.
That's why you have the option to search it.
Yeah, that's why you can actually, on your phone, you can type in the name, because if you don't want to enable broadcast, so you don't want to go, hey, there's Wi-Fi signal here, come join us, yay, you have to know the password though. If you don't even want that to happen, and you just want your Wi-Fi to be chilling there, you have to type in Abraham links this when you're near my house to even find it, that would be whatever. That's more secure, but if you're always having people over, if you have people who aren't good with the internet at your house. I mean, I grew up with my grandparents lived with me, so it wasn't the greatest at technology, although they didn't use technology. They just used the TV and the microwave a lot. Anyway, so that's another important thing. We may implement that next year here, where you have to type in WA student or WA staff, just because what that does. Another thing, when you have 600 kids in a school, you have your access points broadcasting 600 times.
Oh, so you're more likely to get hacked.
You're more likely to get hacked. Well, I wouldn't say hacked, but it cuts down network speed. Because if I'm always like, as people come in, I have to go, oh, I have to make sure I tell that person, that device, that I have internet. Oh, and I'm also dealing with all this. If I don't have to broadcast anything, I can just deal with input. It makes it a little faster. So we may go into that in the next year or so. Enable MAC address filtering. This is pretty cool, and this I know if you guys want to take not the networking exam, but not networking plus certification, but the A+ certification. There is a section specifically on networking, and one of the things they do is they have a virtual environment in which they go, give this home Wi-Fi network this password, make sure that this MAC address can, and only this MAC address can access the internet or access the network, and a couple other things, and you have to know how to navigate a router, right? Which is why tomorrow or on Thursday you guys are going to actually navigate a router and see what it's like. So MAC address. Does anyone remember what MAC stands for?
Media access.
Media access controller. Yeah, and it's always a hexadecimal. Did we go over hexadecimal yet?
Kind of.
We went over binary, right? No.
1 through 9.
A through F. So on your guys' Surface, if you guys go to actually do command, bring up the command prompt, and then type in ipconfig space -all. So ipconfig space -all, you'll get a list of a bunch of information. By the end of the school year, you'll know what most of that means, right? You probably won't know DHCP version 6 because we don't do, that deals with IPv6s. And while we learn about it, we actually don't have an IPv6 server here to deal with to hand out IP or to deal with IPv6s, so we don't use that. But the third one down, you should see says physical address. That is your MAC address filter. So for my computer, it is 98-5F-D3-3C-48-23. So on my home network, I could do a MAC address filter that either you can do whitelist or blacklisting. Whitelist means only these options can join, right? Blacklist is only these options are denied. What?
Only them can't join.
Only them can't join, yeah. So whitelist is so only these devices can join. So if you're whitelist 3 objects, 3 MAC addresses, literally only those 3 objects can join your network. Nothing else can. Whereas if you blacklist 3 objects, everything but those 3 objects can join. So, for example, let's do it with websites. If I whitelist yahoo.com, what does that mean? Raise your hand, anyone. What are you gonna say?
Everybody can join the network.
Well, if we're just dealing with whitelist and blacklisting websites, so it's not a network. So if I whitelist yahoo.com,
Everybody can go to Yahoo.
okay, what about other websites? They cannot go there because I've only allowed one website to be used. If I blacklist google.com, what does that mean, Geo?
Not letting people go
To what?
to go to that website.
To Google or any other website?
To Google.
To Google. Yeah. That means no one can go to Google. Do you guys get blacklist versus whitelist?
Yeah.
Yes. Any questions? If you have a question, raise your hand. I bet money someone has the same question. They just don't want to ask it. Okay. So, what else is on here? So IPv4, you see that? Real quick, you guys see lease obtained and lease expires? Every time you log into a network, it gives you an IP address, right? It's called DHCP. DHCP is Dynamic Configuration Host Protocol, and we're going to go over this later, but what that means, that is what decides what IP address you get. So if I've given Thomas 10.0.0.1, I remember that I've given that to him, and as a DHCP server, I know I can't give Geo 10.0.0.1, I have to give him something different. And so you can see mine says 10.204.204.3 preferred. That means that's the one that I've been on the most, I think. I think that's what that means. But you can lock in an IP address where you always get that IP address. And you can either do it from the DHCP server so that, when I see Josh's MacBook join my network, I need to reserve this IP address only for him. No one else gets it. Or you can, on your computer, say, I'm only going to use this address. Where that gets iffy is if you're on a network with a DHCP server that has already assigned your IP address. And I think, depending on how the DHCP server is set up, I don't think it allows you to join, or you have major issues because the computer doesn't know, the DHCP server and the Wi-Fi network doesn't know where to send the packets. So DHCP, what does it do in 10 words or less? Sam?
Assign, this manages IP addresses, or assigns it?
Yes, perfect. That's exactly it. So if you guys, and we're gonna go over this, I believe, I may touch on it Friday or Thursday, but if not, I'll touch on it Friday. It's changing your computer IP address. If you mess with your IPv4 settings and you forget that you've done that, your internet won't work and there's nothing. And you're like, my internet doesn't work. I've restarted it, Mr. Filter, nothing's working. I can't do anything. And well, typically that helps. But most of the time that helps. So it's another thing for troubleshooting once you know, maybe, because I've done that in my office. I've changed stuff in here for class. Forgot I did, went in there, I'm sitting there like, Mr. Vishnoff, Bob, this isn't working, man. What'd you do to the Wi-Fi? I didn't do anything, Zach. What'd you do? I don't know. I can't join the Wi-Fi. I can't do anything. I can't surf. Can you? And then it's like 10 minutes before I remember I changed my IPv4 settings. And they're conflicting with something, so oopsies. Yes, Sebastian.
Can you put ipconfig space? Because I did this a long time ago. I was messing with this a long time ago. No,
He wants you to
start
type
typing.
Oh, IP
Config. And then control
config space.
Control 2 sevens. The ends.
Wait,
The ends, like the ends.
so you mean shift like this?
Oh yeah, and then space again, and then dir. What is all that?
So this is a directory of, so I have a folder on my computer that connects to the server that basically is a backup. Everything I do and put in my documents folder gets backed up and saved to the server. This, what it looks like, is a directory of that. So this is volume and drive T is staff data volume, serial number is whatever. And this is stuff that I've saved on my, oh my gosh, look at that. Look at how many bytes are free. 1.1 trillion bytes are free, but that's only like terabyte. But see, so if you,
basically that's like a backup.
yeah, that's a command line prompt to get to
The C drive.
this. So if you look at the two, you see AstroPy, Idle, RC, IPython, and you see all of these folders match these ones. So it was looking for network drives that my computer is connected to, and that's one of them. So let's go over network address translation. I got 17 minutes. So NAT is basically, you remember how I was talking to you guys yesterday about I have a public IP address at home, or I have a private IP address in my house. So my computer connects to my router with antenna. That connects to my modem. That connects to my ISP. To my computer. Connects to my router. Yes, Mr. Stelter, we remember. Thank you. So, there's something called
Picture.
what?
You're drawing the picture.
Yeah, but I asked a question and then you guys just.
Yeah, but you're still drawing the picture.
I was adding R and M and C, and then I was standing here looking at you guys, and then I did this, and no one responded. So
Somebody said thank you, Mr. Stoltz.
I don't know. I'm just a good student. It's a good student. Whoever said that. So remember how I said this is given an IP address that we'll do 10.0.0.2 because this is technically 10.0.0.1. This has its own IP address depending on who makes it. We're gonna say 192.168.0.1. So remember how I said this is the private IP address of the modem, but it may have 66.42.8.90 as its public IP address. So there's something called network address translation, which deals with this. What do I mean by deals with this, Mr. Stolter? Basically, it controls who it doesn't. So the DHCP is the thing that actually gives the IP address, right?
It generates it.
Yeah. So you give it a range. So if my DHCP range on my network is 10.0.0.1 to 10.0.255.255. That means I can have anywhere. So these two numbers can change, but these can't. So a 10.0.42.7 falls within this DHCP range, but 10.1.42.7 does not. So one easy way to actually, we're going to get into that later with DNS. But there's one specific IP address that if you get, means your DNS server is not working. Or you're not connected to a DNS server. So when you type in YouTube, it can't redirect you. So network address translation, as the book says, prevents anyone from the outside from seeing this or this or that. So it's kind of like a shield, not like a firewall, but it's more, so firewall actively protects against, listen, Sebastian, if you're going to YouTube, I'm going to allow YouTube to come to you. But if you're not going to YouTube and no one in 4 days has gone to YouTube and I'm getting information sent from YouTube to my computer, I'm not going to let it in. Right? It's literally it's a wall that stops any unwanted or any uninvited traffic. But if you're going to YouTube all the time, it's going to allow YouTube to go through. And then you can block certain ports. So certain things use different ports, right? We're going to get into this later. But you can block certain applications. So you can block any email traffic from coming into your network. You can block any unencrypted websites from coming into your house. Those sorts of things. And that's when you actually have like a firewall. You can do that on your computer, on a computer level, but you have to have a higher grade than what Comcast gives you router. So like my router I spend a decent amount of money for, I can do this. I can go, I don't want any email traffic on my network. Boom, email's gone. Can't get email on my phone at my house. But on what Comcast gives you, because that's another layer of complexity and another layer of control that you have, they don't want you to have it because it makes, what?
It's more dollars.
It's more money to get those types of routers. And two, if I'm calling, technical support, I can't get Wi-Fi, I can't get emails at home. Instead of it going, well, your router's bust, like it adds complexity to their jobs. And they don't want to deal with that. So network address translation only allows this website to be seen by outsiders who aren't connected to the network. Make sense? Yes? No?
Yes,
maybe so?
it does make
Thank
sense,
you.
sir.
That's all I want to hear. Firewall protection. So we did go over that. So it's stateful packet inspection. That's a type of firewall protection. That is, and we get into this later in network security. I'm sending information to YouTube. I can receive information from YouTube. But if I'm not sending any information to YouTube, I'm not going to retrieve any information from you. I'm not going to retrieve or receive any information from YouTube. My firewall is not going to let it because it could be an attack. Establish a VPN connection. Who knows what a VPN is? Virtual private network. Does anyone not know what that is? So basically, there's two different types of VPN. One allows you to connect to a private network via a public network. So if I'm at home and I would need to access my computer in here, I type in the information and I use the public internet to go to a certain IP address that this school has as a public IP address. Right? What does that mean? So we purchase, I think, 10 public IP addresses. Meaning, if you type these IP addresses into your computer, it will actually take you to a website. It will take you somewhere that the school owns. Now, Mr. Vishnoff, when we got our new network, had to justify why he needed 10. Can anyone think of why that would be?
Wasn't the website files?
Not for files.
Website one.
What?
Isn't the website one?
School website is one, yes.
Okay.
So wheatonacademy.org.
Okay.
Academy Central is actually hosted, I don't think by us, I think it's hosted
Amazon, isn't it?
by Canvas, who I think is owned by Amazon. So Amazon owns that one.
Athletics that we Academy.
Well, you don't have to think of all 10. I'm just asking, why would he have to justify an IP address? There's 4.2 billion of them.
Because it's the school.
Not this, you're getting public school, kind of. What were you saying about public?
Like you gotta pay for public, so everybody.
Right. So because our private IP addresses that we've gone over, the 10.0.0.1, the 172.16.0.1, and 192.168.0.1, those are private.
I gotta turn the alarm.
Yeah, that scared me for a second. I thought it was my phone going off. So those types of IP addresses, those can be reused ad infinitum almost, right? Because Sebastian can have a house and he has 190 or 10.0.0.1. Jared can have 10.0.0.1 at his house because we went over this last week. Remember, if I have 10.0.0.1 on my network, as long as my modem has a different IP address, it's okay. My traffic doesn't get confused with Jared's. But because there's only 4.2 billion IP addresses, there's addresses that are public that you have to own in order to be able to use them, right? Because not everyone can have 66.42.8.0. That's public. Anyone can type that in and get to that router or get to that website. So YouTube is like 203 or something like that, their IP address. But that's hosted over multiple servers, which kind of confuses and makes it difficult. If one web page is hosted or one website's hosted only on one server, you can typically type in the IP address. But if it's hosted over multiple, like YouTube or any really, really big businesses, it's really hard to get the IP address to work. So that's why you just type in Amazon or YouTube. But it's basically like there's only 4.2 billion cars in the world that you can rent to drive. Why do you need 10? Oh, well, I need one. My mom drives a car, so she needs to get to and from work. My dad drives a car, he needs to get to and from work. I need to get to and from work. My brother has to, he's a volunteer, so he volunteers at a bunch of different places. We have a chauffeur, our chauffeur has a chauffeur, and we have a person who drives our dog. So we need 8 of them, not 10, my bad. All right, you can use those 8, that's it. That's what Mr. Vishnov had to do. He had to go, listen, your company owns 1 million or 10 million IP addresses. I need 10 of them for this, that, this, that. Because if they're not going to be used, they need to give it to someone else to rent. Is everyone tracking with that analogy? Mm-hmm. You basically rent an IP address from a company that owns it, unless it's one of the private IP addresses that are automatically assigned in the home. 7 minutes.
So you can't create your own free IP address?
It has to be an IP address that no one uses or owns. So you can host.
Probably doesn't exist.
So yeah, probably doesn't exist. That's why you got to go to like GoDaddy.com or any one of those like Squarespace, and things like that. So what you do is you rent the server space basically, not the server space. You rent the IP address and you build the website on your own laptop, and then you upload the files to that server. And then anytime someone goes to that website, they see what you've put on there. It's very difficult, and we ran into this last year in web design. Where to host a website only on one little network that everyone can get to. So like I couldn't build a website and then have everyone join it. That's really kind of difficult to do. So it's a lot easier just to go to a website, to buy a website. Excuse me. All right, so we've gone over NAT, VPN. Oh, VPN. Basically, it's a way to secure, it encrypts all of your traffic. So the one I use, it uses public internet to get to a private network. The other one kind of wraps your communications in encryption, so it's really hard to crack. And 2, it tends to get around filters, which is why we do not allow VPNs on our network. And if you have a VPN on your network, we uninstall it the moment we see it. So.
When you see it. I don't know.
Okay. Assembling an office LAN. So assembling is just basically what's the best way to set it up, and you're going to go over this, and you can use this as a reference for tomorrow when you're setting it up. I do want to talk about this sort of stuff. Cat 6. So Cat 6 is Category 6 cable, which is currently becoming more and more the standard. The entire science wing has been ran with Cat 6 cable. And what that means is Cat 6 is the 6th basically category in Ethernet technology. Haha. They have Cat 6E, which is slightly better, but it's not worth the cost yet. Each category runs at it has different frequency and speed. Cat 6 can do a gigabyte Yeah, a gigabit of internet, right? Which is what we have now, at least. Yeah, we do, but then we've also implemented rules where data capping for each student is capped at 3 megabits per second. That's why downloads take a long time, because you're only downloading at 3, and only God knows if you're actually getting that, because they might be capping you as well to 1 because they have 30 kids from one IP address trying to download the same file. So it's kind of whatever. So Cat 6 is Cat 6, Cat 5, Cat 5e, Cat 6a, Cat 7. Cat blank is this type of wire. Cat 3, real quick, is phone wire. So Cat 6 or Cat 3, and we're gonna get into this in a couple chapters. You're actually gonna build. You're gonna build one of these. I'm gonna give you the cable itself, and you have to put the end on it. Make sure it works. It's pretty fun. It's actually a lot of fun. I love it. So the difference between Cat 3 and Cat 5 and higher, Cat 5 has 8 individual wires in here. Cat 3 only has 4. So this can transfer a lot more data and power, and we're going to go over that in the Ethernet chapter, which is, I think, chapter 2. The tip at the end of this, the plastic tip, is called an RJ45. You guys are going to need to know that. You guys are going to become really familiar with RJ45 and RJ11. RJ11 is on Cat 3. Megabits per second. Oh, this is actually really, really, really important. So we all know that a megabyte, a song is a couple megabytes. A movie can be hundreds of megabytes to a gigabyte, right? Ever know what a megabyte is? Mm-hmm. A megabit is, so it's 8 bits equals 1 byte. So if you get 80 megabits per second download speed at home, that translates to 10 megabytes per second. So if I have a 10 megabyte file, even though I'm downloading at 80 megabits per second, it'll download in 1 second and not an eighth of a second.
Pretty sure that's not how you spell bytes.
That's what it was.
I'm hungry, okay? Sorry. Thank you. So it's really weird. So we have a gigabit, so we have 1,000 megabits per second. So that only allows us to download 125 megabytes per second. So if we had a 125 megabyte movie, it would take us 1 second to download it, as opposed to an eighth of a second. Does that make sense? All right, so homework for tomorrow, or for Thursday, come ready, prepared, know what a MAC address filter is, know what a DHCP is.
Nathan,
Review
Melody, Rachel,
a little bit,
Lutman,
1.4.
Gum in the library. Forge Zhao, please see the nurse in the Mrs. Grant in the nurse's office. Lilac Lay, please see Mrs.
1.4
Stevens
and
in student
reread
services.
1.5 briefly, just to get an idea of how to set up a network. See you guys Thursday.
Eli Evo, Josh Lee, Graham Spindler.